Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. I am delighted to welcome the former lieutenant governor of the great state of Georgia and now a candidate for governor in Georgia, the Democratic candidate for Georgia, and that is Geoff Duncan. Geoff, welcome.
Glad to be here, Jen. Thanks for the opportunity.
You were very outspoken in the campaign, warning about the dangers of Donald Trump. From what you've seen so far, it does seem that your warnings have been borne out. I'm just curious, given James Comey and given all the other things that have happened, whether your concerns about Trump really are playing out in real time now.
Yeah, not only are they playing out what my concerns were on the campaign trail, but I think it's even worse than any of us could possibly have imagined. I mean, the very definition of weaponizing government, the federal government, is being, enacted every minute of every day. The Department of Justice and other agencies, even down to how they're pressuring the Fed with rates and the board and Lisa. It's unnerving to see this continue to play.
Absolutely. So tell us about your decision to switch parties and your decision to run for governor.
Yeah, for me, the core interest for me in public service is to figure out ways to love my neighbor better. I think that drives a lot of folks that are listening to this just in their day-to-day lives. But in politics, I was a professional baseball player, I was a business owner, kind of had developed my lane. I got a wife that loves me and three great kids. Politics came to me because I wanted to figure out ways to love my neighbor. And in Georgia, I was able to do that a number of different ways with rural hospitals and tax credit programs, educational improvements, you name it. But for me, it just became too hard to love my neighbor as a Republican. There was too many asterisk marks. And so this process started well before Donald Trump tried to steal the 2020 election. But for me, I had a front row seat for how bad could actually get for not only Donald Trump, but those that would follow him, which includes a majority of the Republican Party. And so for me, the transition to becoming a Democrat was just a natural process that played out. The steps I took along the way were to really speak out against a number of issues. I didn't run again for lieutenant governor because I didn't feel like there was a home for me that I was welcomed in. And I spoke at the DNC as loudly and proudly as I possibly could. I campaigned for Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania. I went there 8 times in over 2 months. Went to North Carolina, Wisconsin, did all I could do. This transition to becoming a Democrat makes all the sense in the world for me and my family, because I now wake up every day with more tools in my tool bag to figure out ways to love my neighbor and to really look at policies that make sense and meet people where they're at. Because I believe Georgia's best days are still in front of us. And I want to be a part of that leadership team that helps lead all Georgians to those better days.
And why the governorship? Are there certain issues that compelled you to step forward? Is there something going on in Georgia right now that is of grave concern to you? Why run for governor?
Yeah, so as lieutenant governor, there was a pretty tumultuous period of time. From 2019 to 2023, we faced a pandemic, 10% unemployment overnight. We had a tremendous period of time with civil unrest. And of course, the 2020 election was trying to be stolen from our citizens. And so I learned a lot, but I also learned how valuable the job of governor is in Georgia. You get to draft the first draft of the budget and pick the revenue estimate. So you get to give the early focus as to what matters to Georgians. You get to really control the legislative process in a way that is chief negotiator. And you also get to really align those agencies that deal with every Georgian's daily lives. And so for me, the job of governor is a very, very important job. And I think that there's 3 things that I want to focus on. We have an affordability crisis in Georgia, we have a healthcare crisis in Georgia, and we have a Donald Trump crisis in Georgia. And that requires focus, that requires attention, that requires a very granular approach. I mean, the affordability crisis is truly that. It's a crisis. I mean, there's folks listening today that cannot even imagine how they're going to pay rent next month. There's some folks that are sitting in the checkout line at the grocery store that don't know how they're going to pay for all the groceries for their family. There's folks that want to go back to work, but can't because they can't afford childcare. And so we've got to laser focus our approach. One of those areas is Georgia has $17 billion sitting in our savings account. A lot of fiscal responsibility, economic growth, a lot of things went into that. But that's 50% of our annual budget. I think we can take some of that money, 10% of it, $1.7 billion, and laser focus that on back towards folks that need help with affordability. The second is the healthcare crisis. It helps nobody in Georgia to show up to the emergency room without health insurance. It certainly doesn't help the person that's going to possibly bankrupt themselves. And it doesn't help the hospital who most likely will have to bankrupt themselves, which we're seeing play out. And so we've got to do a better job of expanding Medicaid in our state. We've got to be able to reach into those households that have a difficult period of time. And not to mention the subsidies are about ready to expire on the ACA. And also just commercial plans in general are rapidly increasing because they're trying to absorb all the other costs that are associated with the big, beautiful bill, not so big, beautiful bill. And then last but not least, the Donald Trump crisis is overwhelming. It is reaching in the lives. And I think at the end of the day, that will be the number one issue that rises up when we finally get to this 26 election in November. We've got to have people willing to stand up and push back, be able to willing to stand up on principle and say, no, that's not okay to deface people, demean people, to use the federal government as a weapon.
So let me get into a few specifics. Donald Trump says, I'm going to send the National Guard to Georgia. What does Governor Duncan say? Does he allow the National Guard to be nationalized? What would be your response to Donald Trump if you were in the same position, for example, Governor Newsom was in?
I think the most telling sign to all of this is Donald Trump's inability to actually communicate and work with any governors or mayors. They just show up, right? I think it really proves to the point he's trying to make is control and dominance. And it's really a disgusting display of leadership that goes on. I think the number one issue is, and you saw it play out in California. He sent the troops in. It had to go all the way to the courts. The troops were there for a few weeks and really just kind of pacing around what was already a lawful environment. There was a few flare-ups, and large cities certainly always have to contend with that. But then the court spoke, and the court said, no, you did overreach. And I think that is what I would point to and say, no, there's no reason to bring troops here. We are managing this as a state, as individual cities like the city of Atlanta and Mayor Andre Dickens. And we don't need those here. And if it takes the courts to prove that point, then that's certainly something I would be willing to do.
Abortion. Many Democrats, obviously very much pro-choice. You say you got it wrong. Can you explain to voters how you made that transition and how they can have confidence now that you would be an advocate for women's right to choose?
Yeah, I did. I got it wrong. I was wrong to think a room full of legislators knew more about the issue than millions of women in Georgia. And over the past few years, I've had the opportunity to speak to and meet with women and hear their stories, their tragic situations, their difficult healthcare scenarios, their personal situations. And I truly believe that women do deserve the right to choose, irregardless of anybody's personal opinions. And I think it's very important to kind of understand my journey to this point. One, those conversations were huge with those women. But two, my conversations and listening to Kamala Harris talk about abortion, and that just because somebody has a deep personal opinion on the matter doesn't give you the right to force that opinion on somebody else. And so that was an important stepping stone for me. And so I've committed everywhere I go to, one, say, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. I want to own that mistake. And two, I want to make sure that folks understand that day one as governor of this state, I will sign an executive order that clarifies that doctors can practice medicine without fear of prosecution. And secondly, I'll introduce legislation day one that will repeal the 6-week ban and give women the right to choose and bring us back to a Roe v. Wade environment.
Are there other issues that you can say, I got it wrong? And by the way, this is very unusual for a politician. Politicians never say, I got it wrong. So in that respect, you're a bit of an odd duck. Other issues like abortion that you can say to voters, this is what I would do differently now?
Yes, I think guns are one of them. I was mistaken early as a young Republican legislator to think the NRA had anybody's best interest in mind, and they don't. They simply want to fundraise. They want to be divisive. I look through the lens now as a father of 3 kids that can't imagine going to the bus stop and one of them not being there because somebody that should have been flagged with a red flag law or had some sort of universal background check done to not give them that opportunity to enact hate. I think there's opportunities to create gun safety laws that make sense. I stand with the 90% of Americans that want those universal background checks and those red flag laws. I think there's an opportunity for us to get it right in Georgia. And I certainly will lead the cause. I think another area that I got wrong was on Medicaid. I tried to take little nibbles at expanding healthcare, but the reality is, as I spoke about on the beginning of this, there's no fix for somebody showing up without health insurance at the hospital or the emergency room. And there's no scenario where people without health insurance get sick less often than people that do have health insurance. And so we've got to expand that opportunity to make sure they have coverage. It disproportionately affects rural parts of the state, urban parts of the state, and we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And to your point about saying, I'm sorry, I got it wrong, I think we finally need leaders to stand up and lead by example. And the example sometimes is, I didn't get it right. In my life, the leaders in the business world and in the community that have made the biggest impact on me are the ones that do say, hey, I didn't get it right, now let's go join hands and get it right. And for me, that's part of this process. And I've been overwhelmed at the acceptance from Democrats that have said that. Not all. Some folks are upset that I haven't been a Democrat since the day I was born. Nothing I can do about that. But I do think this is the scenario that the Democratic Party needs to see the tent get bigger and attract more folks. And every day Donald Trump opens his mouth, our tent should get bigger.
And that's where I wanted to kind of end. What has been the reaction? What are the types of things you're hearing from Georgians? And how confident are you that you can win the race and go on to be the next governor?
It's really been overwhelming to see folks. I mean, we've been all over the state already. I've been doing this. This is day 9 of the campaign. We've been to Middle Georgia. We've been to South Georgia. We're headed to Savannah next week. I'm headed back to Columbus this week on Sunday. We've been to South Atlanta. We've been everywhere. We've covered the state like the morning dew in 9 days, to coin a fun phrase. And the reaction has been great. And it comes from a couple different angles. A lot of folks are like, thank you so much for coming here into this race and focusing on the issues that matter the most to Georgians, the affordability, the healthcare, and Donald Trump, and not getting distracted with this partisan fist fight that breaks out on every issue, every minute of every day. And that's my promise to Georgians. If they want me to live in the fringes, that's just not me, and I respectfully ask you to vote for somebody else. But if you want to do 2 things, stay focused on improving your daily lives, your educational outcomes for your kids, your community safety, and the other issues, then I'm the person to vote for. But the other thing that has really been a strong pull is the fact that Democrats want to win. It's been nearly 30 years since a Democrat has won the governor's race in Georgia. 1998, Roy Barnes won, and that's the last time a Democrat's won. And I think a lot of folks look at me and say, you know what, this guy has got the best chance to beat Donald Trump's handpicked sock puppet in this general election. And I do, because I will show up in November of 26 on the ballot versus probably Burt Jones, who Donald Trump's already endorsed. And I will get Democrats to vote for me. I'll get independents to vote for me and disgusted Republicans. And that will be enough to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to win this race.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being honest about your journey, and best of luck. We are definitely going to be following the race here. So best of luck.
Thank you so much. And you can go to duncanforgeorgia.com to find out more information.
There you go.